After a busy week for InterMiami with 2 games, one against Atlanta, one against St. Louis, we get into a little bit of a break now in the schedule. We talk about it all here on the InterMiami Weekly Show. Back here at Chase Stadium, which is weird to see empty after it was full twice this week for the games against Atlanta and St. Louis. That's Kieran Gibbs. I'm Joe Malfa. Happy to have you with us for the InterMiami Weekly Show once again. Unbeaten streak comes to an end. It was nice while it lasted, up at 10 games. Loss against Atlanta in the midweek, Kieran. Bounced back with a draw against a very difficult team in St. Louis last year, the top team in the Western Conference. So it was good. It was some not so good this week for InterMiami, but general thoughts on the week that was.
Yeah, look, I think it was a difficult week. I think we can all agree that from a performance standpoint, Miami can perform a lot better. That being said, I think that the second game, they definitely, we saw signs of what we're used to. I feel like the first game was something wasn't clicking offensively, which we're so used to seeing, and it's normal that those games happen. Sometimes you can't put a finger on why, but some uncharacteristic, misplaced passes, and I think that, they left themselves vulnerable in transition, and I think that's what cost them mostly in that game. We did see better signs in the second game, but all in all, they did bounce back again, coming from down, showing that character that we've seen so much this season, and so they've left themselves not too unscathed.
And it was an interesting one, especially early on. InterMiami did have some of the better play, a slow start. Some of these, though, Kieran, you'll see the goals when they happen for Atlanta. You tip the cap because it was just that kind of day at the office.
Yeah, it was. You have to give Atlanta credit. They did capitalize, when we were weak in transition, and you have to give them credit. I mean, this goal is absolutely outstanding. Drake can do nothing about this. But yeah, I mean, definitely Miami were sloppy in the early stages of the game.
Messi, though, is usually the answer to all questions, and that is what would ultimately happen. But it took a little bit of time for the attack to click in this one. Lobjanidze had a lot of space, a lot of time, and again, you tip your cap. The first goal with the right foot, that one with the left foot, but then Miami would have the response from Messi.
Yeah, and normally you have to rely on these players to pull out a moment of magic, and they nearly got back into the game, and we've seen that how many times this season, and you thought that it was going to be the case again. I think that they just, try too much and come out and really get the equaliser, and I think that's what ended up killing them for the third.
That's one of the most positive things you can draw from this game against Atlanta, is that they've gotten such a reputation now as a group that will come back, that as soon as Messi scored that goal to make it 2-1, you felt in your bones like they would come back and get the win. We've seen it time and again. Kieran, you and I have been talking about it basically week after week. Doesn't matter when they concede, how many they concede. There's a sense of inevitability that they're going to come back into it. But you do play with fire at times when that is the type of team you are, because eventually you run into a team who takes their chances or scores 2 bangers on the day like Lobjanidze did for Atlanta. Again, those first 2 goals, you tip your cap. You try to do all you can to claw back. A little bit too much in the end. But again, they've just garnered that reputation now where you think they're going to come back in every game for whatever the score is.
And it's normal because, how good they've been offensively in certain occasions in games when they're from behind. You just can't write them off. But every now and then you do get a game where things just don't click. That final pass, I felt like the communication, the normal combinations that we see with Messi, Suarez and co, just wasn't sinking.
Now, there's some games like that where it just doesn't go your way. There's also some games where it's just crazy. That was the St. Louis game that happened on Saturday that finished 3-3. So let's go into those highlights now. Crazy is the only way to describe it. It was just back and forth, end-to-end action. Anybody who paid for a ticket for this game got more than their money's worth, both ways, to be fair. I mean, in my opinion, I don't know that there's been a game this season for InterMiami where better goals were scored combined between both teams. We tip the cap to Lobjanidze for his goals for Atlanta. You tip the cap to Chris Durkin for this goal for St. Louis because, come on.
Yeah, from absolutely nowhere. What a strike. I mean, especially his near post as well, but he does really well to execute that.
And then this one, again, it just gets to a point now where you feel like when you go down, there's going to be a response. It's just going to go from there, and that was the case in this one for InterMiami.
Yeah, and just the speed of response as well. It's unbelievable to see how many times they've done it this season, and it's also unbelievable how many times we've seen this combination, Jordi Alba into Messi, how he steadies himself so quickly to get the power behind the ball and beat Roman Burki at his near post is just unbelievable.
I believe the tweet from the club when that happened was just muscle memory between those two. You're so used to it. It was almost a surprise that it didn't happen again here. It's just copy and paste every time. We've seen it for over a decade, and now we've seen it for a year and a half at Miami.
You would think that someone would have learned how to stop it by now, but it's just not the case.
There's some things you just can't stop, and it's that combination between Alba and Messi that may never be stopped. They're going to be playing Sunday League in a retirement home when they're 75 years old and reminiscing on their career, scoring that same goal. And this one, too, because Suarez always seems to peel off and find the space.
And then just throw Luis Suarez into the mix while we're at it. It's a classic. I think the commentator summed it up when he said vintage when I was listening the other night. But, I mean, look at this. Third man run, Luis Suarez, where we want him to be, and gets the boys right back in it.
And then, again, just continuing to respond to going down. St. Louis kept throwing that counterpunch. InterMiami kept coming back with an equalizer.
Yeah, and the thing is, they could have won it as well at the end, which was so incredible to see. I mean, what a game. The way it swung from left to right throughout the 90 minutes was amazing to see.
Appeal for the offside flag here on this one. They were adamant about it, St. Louis, and as it would go on, they seemed to think that they had it in their back pocket, but play it forward, and you see it's time just about to perfection. And from there, InterMiami just able to go ahead and salvage that point. Again, late on, you felt they could have won it, and really, in a way, maybe they should have. But again, it just goes back to the conversation we're having about the Atlanta game. From any position, any score, even in that game against D.C. a couple weeks back in the rain here, where it didn't seem like either team had much going offensively all day, boom, Campana subs in, he's on the field for 30 seconds, and he scores. So it's not just Messi, Suarez, Alba, Busquets. Like, everybody gives you that sense now with Rojas coming. They all make you feel like from any position, any time in the game, they're going to find an equalizer or a go-ahead goal.
Absolutely. And the thing is, we know that teams play different against Miami, and I actually think that teams play better against us when it's 0-0. Because I think that they've got more of that nothing to lose mentality, and so they play with more freedom. And then when they go a goal up, it's almost like they're trying to hang on to that goal, and that's when we get control of the game and we start to make things happen. So I think that that's the theme of games against Miami at the moment. Which, listen, as long as we're outscoring the opponents, then we're not complaining. But it's games like the Atlanta game, like I said, where things aren't coming off the way that we're used to them coming off, and the performance just drops a little bit. That's what we've got to be careful of.
And it's good that the problem is easily identifiable. We know time and again it seems to be that transitional defense where somebody's out of position or they're committing so many numbers forward and struggle getting back. It'd be more worrisome if we're sitting here scratching our heads wondering exactly what went wrong. We know exactly what happened in those moments, and now it's just a matter of, in this little break here before they come back on the 15th of June, correcting it.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, they're a highly entertaining team to watch, right? And so, you're not going to have it all. And at the moment, they've done enough, more than enough, sitting at the top of the table, and so it seems to be working at the moment. They are gonna concede chances. They are, because they're gonna be exposed, because they like to play on the front foot. They like to really go for games, and that's exciting to see as a fan. I would prefer that than the other way where we just sit back and try and soak up pressure. I don't enjoy that way of football.
Yeah.
So I would prefer this. Of course, they want to tighten up in areas in transition, like you said, and just trying to, be a bit more streetwise and savvy and know that, when we are pushing forward, how can we position ourselves better to deal with, when we do lose the ball? That's something, obviously, that we would all like, and I'm sure Tata's going to be working on. But listen, at the moment, you have to give the boys credit for what they've done so far this season.
Yeah, well, you and I had the conversation. I remember back to one of our first episodes of the weekly show this year, where as much as we're going to want an invincible season, doesn't always happen that way. So there's going to be moments like this where there's a little bit of a bump in the road. It's how you respond, and it comes at a good time again. We're off now until June 15th. In that span, by the way, going to lose some players to Copa America, so just want to wish all of our players well. We'll be competing coming up now in the summer. That includes Lionel Messi, and the numbers that he posted now halfway through the season, 12 goals, 12 assists. He is the fastest player in MLS history to 25 goal contributions in a season. And again, a very select group who have had 12 goals and 12 assists in a season. A season! We're halfway through a season, and he already has these numbers. It's just putting into context how great everything he's doing has been for the club.
I mean, listen, I'm not sure why we expected any less from the guy. You know, he really is that guy. He's there. He's born to break records. He sets the standard for world football, and it's just amazing to have him here. And how many moments has he given us? You know, just in this short space of time of him being here, priceless moments. What a player, and it's a joy to be able to watch and talk about him every week.
Absolutely, and some priceless moments on this field as well with the Youth International Cup in the last week. We say, you know, it's tough to be invincible. Well, all the youth were invincible. All the youth levels for InterMiami in that tournament here went unbeaten. 6 of the 7 did take home the trophy. You know, you like to be perfect, and they were. You went through the whole tournament, every age group, not a single loss for the InterMiami youth. And we talk about the stars and the top level, right, with Messi and everybody, but we seem to forget how far we've come from last year when we were relying, and still are in some way, on the David Ruizes of the world, Ben Hakramaskis of the world. For a young club that, again, just started in 2020, so many youth prospects and so much youth talent has come through to be out here. 500 teams from across the state of Florida, across the country, coming in for that tournament to go unbeaten at every single age level just shows you from top to bottom, whether it's Messi down to the last player on the last U11 roster on the club. Like, there's just a level of excellence that's expected from top to bottom.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a real sign that, you know, this is a healthy club. You know, whenever you have a club that has a good youth system and a high quality youth system, it's always a promising sign that, you know, that the club is in a good place. There's so many clubs back home that have, you know, those really solid foundations as a youth system. Clubs like Southampton and so forth back in the UK. That, you know, this is kind of like the place in America where there's top youth talent, and we're seeing it expressed through the InterMiami Academy, which is just amazing to see. And obviously, you know, look what they have to look up to at the moment. It's just unbelievable. So, you know, it's good to see that those standards are filtering right through the club, and it's amazing to see.
Yeah, absolutely amazing all around. This is the part of the show where we would usually preview a game. Can't do that this week. Weekend off for InterMiami, much deserved for the club. It's been a lot of games fast, played 18 games already. Through those 18 games, sitting in first in the Eastern Conference. Not much more you can ask for right now. We thank you for being with us so far this season at the halfway point on the InterMiami Weekly Show. We'll be with you again next week as we revisit some of our favorite moments of the season. You catch it right here inside the club room on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV.